If you want to win your fantasy league this year, you can't just draft the obvious running back. So today I've got 4 running backs who are flying under the radar and could be on the brink of massive workloads in 2025. Now, if you don't know, I'm Sal Vetri. I've been helping people win their fantasy leagues for over 8 years now, and I like to do the same for you right now in this video. And let's start off with the Buffalo Bills second-year running back, their former 4th-round pick in Ray Davis. I want to talk about him because this is a player who, coming out of college last year into the NFL, he was known as like a pro-ready running back. He basically just did everything in college. Let's look at it right now on Player Profiler. The stats from here from college. His final 2 years at Kentucky, he goes out there, he's having 1,000 yards per season. He was a little bit of an older prospect, but with that came a lot of just experience and a lot of abilities to contribute in different ways. He averaged 5.7 yards per carry his final year of college. He had 20 touchdowns. Everything you look at, he caught 28 balls. He was really good in the short areas of the field as well as a pass catcher, good in the red zone, reliable as well. Everything clicked for him. And the Bills saw that back, who was kind of just totally different than James Cook. James Cook, the smaller type of back, an explosive player, sure, but kind of a home run hitter, a boom or bust in some ways, and said, let's get Ray Davis and kind of diversify this backfield. So that's what the Bills did. They spent a 4th-round pick on Ray Davis, and as a rookie, he had some pretty impressive stats. He averaged 5 yards per touch, he was top 15 in broken tackle rate, and he ranked 11th overall against stacked boxes, which basically means when the defense was bringing an extra man in the box, Ray Davis was still finding success. And even though he was a backup, he was producing. He actually had 6 different games of at least 10 fantasy points while splitting a backfield. You could see in his one start right here, right? You could see this game. This was against the Jets in, I believe, week 6 of the season. There was no James Cook. He was kind of ruled out last second on a Monday night game. Ray Davis goes out there, sees 20 carries compared to the veteran Ty Johnson's just 4, and he just explodes. He has 97 yards, 5 yards per touch. Not only that, but the rookie Ray Davis in his first ever start in prime time also goes out there and he has 3 catches, 55 yards, leads the team in both rushing and receiving, puts up nearly 150 total yards. He didn't find the end zone, but every time the guy was touching the ball, he was averaging like 10 plus yards. But this wasn't the only time that he got extended run. We saw this in the final game of the year in week 18 when some of the starters started to sit, and that includes James Cook, who, although he got 10 carries in this game, he didn't play the whole game. Ray Davis, they gave more shine to. He gets 15 carries. He's more efficient than James Cook in this game with 64 receiving yards. You scroll down to what he did as a receiver. He adds 2 receptions as well. So this is a guy who in his 2 opportunities where he got extended run, he looked good. There was other games where like he was the only guy. He caught a 5-yard screen. He took it for a long touchdown in a game where the Bills needed a touchdown late. He was the player doing that, not James Cook. But now let's be honest, James Cook is a good NFL player. That's why he goes as like a 3rd-round pick or maybe even an early 4th-round pick in fantasy drafts. He scored 18 touchdowns last year. This is a good player, right? We're talking about a solid player, but it's also a player that we can't expect to kind of have an 18 touchdown profile. Really, nobody would, especially the workload that we saw from James Cook. And as you can see right here, James Cook and the Bills are not close on a contract extension. Now, James Cook did show up to minicamp overall, mandatory minicamp, because he didn't want to get fined. There's a chance that he kind of plays around with training camp and he shows up, but he's kind of holding in maybe a phantom injury or something along those lines. Because all the quotes out of James Cook is that he still wants a contract extension. He should after an 18 touchdown season, but his contract's just not up yet, so there's no reason to go out and do that, especially when you have other backs on this roster who can contribute. And as you can see right here on Fantasy Draft's tweet, a whopping 40% of James Cook's fantasy points last year came from touchdowns. Nobody else was higher than this. Terry McLaurin's was kind of up there as well across different positions, but 40%, that's probably going to drop this year. There's even a chance that Ray Davis gets more involved in the red zone like he was in limited action as a rookie last year. They trust him more maybe heading into year 2. And when I look at this backfield, I see James Cook, an explosive player who doesn't really get a lot of work inside the red zone or green zone. You see Ty Johnson, who actually had more receiving production than James Cook. Yes, receiving yards than James Cook, despite playing significantly less snaps. And there's Ray Davis, who every single time they seem to give him the ball, whether it was in the games where we started against the Jets like we talked about, or whether it was some of these games where he only saw 46 touches but created 1 to 2 big plays, he changed the dynamic of that drive and the game for the Bills. I think he's only going to get more work this year entering year 2. Especially if the Bills want to make a statement like, hey, James Cook, your contract isn't up. We don't owe you anything. You scored 18 touchdowns. Cool. We're going to give a lot more work to Ray Davis and let you walk next year. And that's just kind of something that is a business, the NFL, at the end of the day. So Ray Davis right now as like a 12th round pick, 13th round pick in some fantasy drafts, heck, a 15th round pick if you're in a 10-team format, that feels really good. If we talk about the handcuff running backs, and we're going to talk about some of them in this one, quote unquote handcuffs, you want the guys that if the starter was to go down or just start to fade away, that once that player comes in, they would basically get the whole backfield. And now, although in this situation, Ty Johnson is still there, who the Bills brought back this year, Ty Johnson, we saw it last year in 2 games where they gave the other backups more run. It was Ray Davis seeing significantly more touches in both of those outings. It was Ray Davis see 15 carries to just 2 for Ty Johnson. It was Ray Davis seeing 20 carries to just 4 for Ty Johnson. Again, these are small samples of just 2 games, but it's all that we have to go off of. They seem to be liking Ray Davis more than Ty Johnson, and that makes sense. sense. Now, the next player you should be drafting more is Tyler Algier, because this guy just does not get the credit that he deserves. And I want to talk about this a little bit. Sure, he's stuck behind Bijan Robinson, who is a top 5 overall pick. Some people think the number 1 overall pick in fantasy, and there is good reason behind that. Bijan Robinson was great last year. But Tyler Algier has still shown that he could play. Let's just look back at this past year. Algier goes out there, and as he has basically every year of his career so far, he plays all 17 games. He goes out there last year, he has 644 yards, averaging nearly 5 yards per carry, being efficient. In his first year with Bijan Robinson, he still earned 186 rush attempts, so he was still splitting the backfield. Of course, that was a different offensive coordinator, different coaching staff now, but we still got to see him highly involved last year for 137 rush attempts. Now, as the season went on, we saw Bijan Robinson start to break away with their new offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson, there, and really not give as much touches per game to Tyler Algier, but that's okay for a couple of reasons. And the biggest reason is we're not drafting Tyler Algier to start him every single week. We're drafting him because you can probably get him in round 15, and he's maybe the best handcuff in all of fantasy. If Bijan Robinson goes down, there's nobody else on this team. We saw it in week 7 last year. Tyler Algier, while splitting the backfield with Bijan wasn't even out, still puts up 18 carries, over 100 yards, scores a touchdown, averaging nearly 6 yards per carry. This is a guy who can still get it done, even on limited touches. But if something happened to Bijan, he's going to come in and he has the ability to see 20 plus carries a game. An efficiency stat here, which is pretty cool, from Twitter, from Arkesh Ray. He says most yards after contact per attempt last year, minimum 100 attempts. Bucky Irving, we know, is extremely explosive. Antonio Gibson barely made this, but it's an interesting player on here. Tank Bigsby got most of these yards after contact in his first 2 games of the year before injury. And then there's Tyler Algier on this list as well. Now, of course, it's a minimum 100 attempts, so there's smaller samples here, so it's going to lead to more efficiency that you see, but you're getting Tyler Algier popping up in the exact same list as a guy like Bucky Irving. And that is what he was known for in college. He was known for breaking tackles, and that's exactly what he did in his rookie year when he set the record for rookie rushing yards by a Falcon at this point in time. He had over 1,000 yards there. He had over 130 receiving yards, so almost 1,200 total yards as a later round rookie. He ranked top 20 in yards per touch, averaging over 5 yards per touch that year. I'm bringing this season up because this was the only year that he got to be the clear-cut starter for his offense. Since then, of course, some things have changed. Obviously, Bijan Robinson is there now, but it's just an indication of what happens if Bijan was to miss time. In that season, in his rookie year, he started to come on down the stretch as well as they trusted him more and phased out some other RBs. In his final 4 games, he was averaging 108 rushing yards per game, 17 fantasy points per game. A lot of people like Tyler Algier heading into his second year in 2023 as like a sleeper candidate up until the draft when Bijan Robinson was obviously taken by the Falcons. Now, as for the team changes tracker for the Falcons, according to the Fantasy Blueprint, that's where you can find this for all the offensive moves. Maybe the least active offseason for a team, which is good because there's no added competition for Tyler Algier. This is still his backfield. The only difference this year is going to be that Michael Penix is going to be the starter over Kirk Cousins since last year, and they lost their center, Drew Dalman, in terms of key changes. But they're bringing back the same offensive coordinator. They're bringing back most of the same offensive line, and there's no other competition. Like, if we're talking about if the starter was to go down in Bijan Robinson, we want the handcuffs who would come in and see a full workload, and they've proved it in the past, and they're in a quality offense. That's what happens with Tyler Algier here, because they're not going to give touches to Jashawn Corbin. They're not going to give touches to Carlos Washington, right? Or at least we don't think on paper right now they would, because those guys are no names in the NFL. So Algier's profile in terms of handcuffing your starting running back actually makes sense in this situation, and even if you don't have Bijan, you should target him because he has a top 10 offensive line. He would see elite goal line opportunities, and there's no other competition behind him. And just in general, like, the line right now on DraftKings Sportsbook is pretty interesting for Tyler Algier. They're projecting him to have an over-under of 550.5 rushing yards, which obviously is assuming that Bijan Robinson plays this year. So at bare minimum, they still think that he's going to be a factor like he's basically been these past couple of seasons, if we pull it up here, where he's rushing for 644 yards and 683 yards in 2 years of Bijan Robinson. So you're still going to get Tyler Algier involved a decent amount to where he's getting 30 or 40 rushing yards per game, some rushing touchdowns as well. And then obviously if something happens to Bijan, there's only upside from there. The biggest reason we even bring up Tyler Algier is because he goes as the 154th overall pick right now. He's often going in like the 13th, 14th round of fantasy drafts. And when I see players that he's going next to in this range, you're talking about kind of the bottom tier level of quarterbacks that I want on my fantasy team. Matthew Stafford, Bryce Young, Tank Bigsby in a 3-headed backfield. Austin Eckler, I think he's actually a solid fantasy pick, but that's why he goes 10 picks prior. Rashad Bateman, a third passing option, maybe a fourth passing option in a run-first offense. So this is the exact profile of running backs, the Ray Davises, and even even more so than Tyler Algier is if the starter goes down, he's in a good situation with no competition. And he's proved he can do it before in his rookie year with over 1,200 or about 1,200 total yards. Now, before we get into this next running back you should be drafting, if you want to see where I have my top 50 overall players ranked right now, totally free. You can check it out with the link in the description below, or just head to fantasyrankingsfree.com. That will take you to this page where you just enter your email and I'll send you instant access. Be sure to check your spam and promotional folders just in case as well. But basically, it'll be my top 50 overall rankings. It'll show you tiered players, identifying the best and worst picks in every single one of those first 5 rounds of your draft, so you know exactly the most important picks of the draft are the early rounds. You can't mess those up. You know the guys you should be taking. And that'll be updated all summer long as well. Now, if you're a serious player and you want my full top 250 rankings, all my other draft tools and in-season tools, that's exactly why I built the blueprint. It's what I use in all my leagues, and over 10,000 people used in their leagues to win more last year. If you want access to the blueprint, there's a link in the description below that'll take you to this video to learn some more information and get some more information here as well. Or you can go to jointheblueprint.com. That's jointheblueprint.com. I will say once August comes, the price will be increasing, and also there's only a limited amount of spots for this year, and they're going really quickly right now. There's not that many left because I just want to make sure that I can give the best personalized attention to everybody in there. So you can check that out at jointheblueprint.com. Now, the next running back I want to talk about that you should be drafting more is Isaac Correndo of the San Francisco 49ers, their second-year player, the former 4th-round pick, and this guy is just an absolute specimen. If you're talking about athletic freaks at the running back position, he is that player, and that's exactly why the 49ers are a big reason why they took him in the 4th round last year. Okay, for starters, this dude is 6 foot, 221 pounds, so he's just like your prototypical, when you think of a workhorse running back in the NFL, it's this guy, 6 foot, 220 pounds. Then you pull up his athletic testing at the NFL Combine, ran the fastest 40 time amongst running backs, 4.33 40 time. This dude ran in the low 4.3s. He's not 180 pounds. He's not even 200 pounds. He's not even 210. He's over 220 pounds running a 4.33. That's top 1% of all time, 100th percentile, 98% burst score. That's his explosiveness, 85th agility. That's just his in between the tackles ability as well. All these things are fantastic. And it's not even like he was a great runner in college, right? His final year when he ends up transferring, he goes to Louisville. He puts up 800 rushing yards. He's averaging 6 yards per carry each of his final 3 years in college. He ends up catching 22 balls. Like, it's nothing crazy overall. He just did enough when you're talking about his athletic testing, running the fastest 40 time, the build that he had, and the actual glimpses we saw of explosiveness on his tape to become a 4th round pick for the 49ers. And then we know that Christian McCaffrey didn't end up playing week 1 and was injured most of the year, and Jordan Mason was great for 5 weeks until he got injured, but then Isaac Correndo was able to earn some touches, and when he got those touches, he was good. So much so that, believe it or not, he ranked 6th in the NFL last year, albeit a somewhat small sample, averaging 5.8 yards per touch. That takes into account his rushing and receiving ability. 5.8 yards per touch is fantastic. Top 20 in broken tackle rate on a limited sample as well. All of these things were awesome. It was great to see. 572 total yards as well on very limited touches is nothing, especially as a later round rookie to scoff at. And maybe the most important piece is that when he was actually seeing over 50% of the snaps, he was producing fantasy relevant weeks, which is the reason why he's in this video. Like, we could just look through the game logs right here. To end the season, he was seeing over 50% of the snaps on Sunday the 8th right here. This is like week 16, 15, 16, 17. He's getting 15 carries for 78 yards, multiple touchdowns, not even factoring in the 2 receptions in this game. 16 carries, 57 yards the following week. He ends up catching 4 balls in that game as well. In his first game where he sees a little bit more limited run, he sees 10 carries, 99 yards. That's an awesome game that he had on Thursday Night Football, where if you remember, he actually slid down late in that game. He could have went for even more yards and a breakaway touchdown, which is something that he did multiple times that year. Against Dallas, 14 carries, 85 yards, a touchdown, averaging over 6 yards per carry. He also had 3 catches in that game. So when we look at this stat right here of him averaging 5.8 yards per touch, that doesn't even factor in that he probably could have had a minimum another 40 to 50 yards and multiple touchdowns if he didn't slide down and not care about the touchdowns and just wanted to win the game. And then you look at his outlook entering this season. Jordan Mason was traded to the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, they drafted Jordan James in the 5th round of the draft out of Oregon, who I think is a really good player in terms of the short areas of the field or in between the tackles when it comes to his footwork and agility and balance. But in general, Isaac Correndo is already in the NFL. He's a better athlete than Jordan James. He proved he could do it on a limited sample last year when they needed him, and now he's going to be behind Christian McCaffrey this year, and he looks like a clear-cut RB2. Like, I'm not going to go out here and just anoint him as like the clear-cut RB2 because we still have all of training camp and preseason to get through, and maybe Jordan James, who I think is a talented 5th round rookie again out of Oregon, can actually stand up and make some competition here. But as it stands on this recording on paper right now, it's only Isaac Correndo behind Christian McCaffrey. And Christian McCaffrey is currently 100% healthy. We already know that. He's coming off of bilateral Achilles tendonitis, which is a very scary thing, but it can heal over a year, and it's been about a year. But that still doesn't take away from the fact that if Christian McCaffrey is healthy, yes, I do want to target him at the end of the 1st round in fantasy drafts, but he's still a 30-year-old running back. He does have have these injuries on him, he is somebody that is susceptible to missing some time this year, and that's where Isaac Correndo can really shine. Because in those games that we talked about and we showed you kind of the game logs earlier where he played at least 50% of the snaps, Correndo averaged 18 fantasy points per game and 100 total yards per game. Essentially 100 yards every time he got at least 50% of the snaps, and some of that has to do with his skill set, how good he is, and then some of it just has to do that his coach is Kyle Shanahan and they know how to run an offense, especially a rush offense there. Oh, and when I pull up this page, I should also mention that Elijah Mitchell is no longer on the team either. Now, he's dealt with injuries the past few years, but he left and he joined the Kansas City Chiefs, so that's just another efficient guy when Mitchell was healthy that is out of this backfield. So it's not only Jordan Mason, it's Elijah Mitchell, it's also Deebo Samuel, who's taken some carries away in the past as well. And we know this 49ers offense is a run-heavy team. They rank top 10 in the NFL in both rushing attempts per game, averaging 4.7 yards per carry as a team. That was top 10 as well. So like we've been saying, if something happens to the starter and Christian McCaffrey, there's a good chance that Correndo comes in and sees maybe the entire workload, maybe splits a little bit with the rookie Jordan James, but for him to be going right now as a 12th round pick, sometimes a 13th, 14th round pick in fantasy drafts, I really like this scenario. I would much rather have a running back in this range of the draft like a Correndo, a guy who is just one injury away from seeing a massive workload compared to like a Christian Kirk, who I think ceiling's a little bit capped, who goes before him. Marvin Mims, who I think ceiling is massively capped. I mean, they were using this guy as like a backup running back out of the backfield last year at times, and these guys are going like 10 to 20 picks before. Rather have him over some tight ends who I don't believe in Tucker Kraft or CJ Stroud, the quarterback, who in terms of fantasy I'm not really buying into, who's right now going 30 picks before an Isaac Correndo. I think he's just one of the better picks you can get later in the draft, like the other two names we've already mentioned. And another guy that kind of falls into this category, although he goes a little bit earlier, is maybe the best handcuff in all of fantasy right now. We talked about him briefly when we were discussing Correndo and the 49ers, and that's the former 49er, now Minnesota Viking, and that is going to be Jordan Mason. I think that he's probably my favorite name on this list that we're going to be talking about. And a lot of people think like Jordan Mason was a rookie last year because they just never heard of his name before. Last year was his third season, but it was finally the first time that he got to show his abilities. And of course, that's because Christian McCaffrey got hurt before week 1 and Jordan Mason took over as a starter for the first 5 weeks of the year before he got injured, and he only went out there and averaged 5.2 yards per touch. I say only because literally in 12 games, and he only was a starter in 5 of these fully, had over 780 yards rushing. He had another 91 yards receiving. So this guy had like 900 total yards last year, despite only starting 5 games and then splitting the backfield in his other games with Isaac Correndo, with Christian McCaffrey when he came back for a stretch of games, which makes things really impressive for Jordan Mason, especially when you start to scroll through some of the efficiency metrics here. He was 11th overall in broken tackle rate on the year. He was top 10 in yards per touch, averaging 5.4 yards per touch. He had 12 breakaway runs, which was also top 10 in the NFL in terms of his breakaway run rate. And then you pull up just RotoViz right here, and you see what he was able to do in those first 5 games of the year before he got hurt in week 6 on Thursday night against the Seahawks, where even in that game, he was dominating over 70 rushing yards midway through the second quarter before messing up his shoulder. But through those first 5 completed starts, he had 17 fantasy points a game. He led the NFL with 21 rush attempts per game and was top 3 in the NFL with rushing yards, 107 per game, and broken tackles during that time. He was an absolute beast. He was also second in runs of 20 plus yards, so just a monster in terms of the explosive runs he was creating. And then you look at this right here. Highest percentage of rush attempts going for 10 plus yards last season. So this isn't just those first 5 games, it's the entire season. We know Jahmyr Gibbs is extremely explosive, so he's number 1, no shocker there. Number 2, 15% of his carries went for 10 plus yards, Jordan Mason. Again, part of this has to do with his skill set, and the other part, like Isaac Correndo, has to do with the fact that he was playing in the San Francisco 49ers offense with Kyle Shanahan, but now this year, he's going to play in another good offense, the Vikings, with another good coach, Kevin O'Connell. Because the Vikings went out and traded for Jordan Mason after re-signing Aaron Jones, and then immediately signed him to a 2-year deal of $10.5 million. And the interesting thing here is this was like historically a great running back class on paper. Everybody loved this rookie running back class, and they went out and got Jordan Mason before that rookie running back class. They could have just went out and got a 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round pick in one of the best running back classes, been a great young running back. They said, nah, we'll take the guy entering his 4th year because we think he's that good. And not only that, we'll trade a draft pick for him and we'll sign him to a 2-year deal for $10.5 million before he even plays a single snap for us. This shows you how much they believe in Jordan Mason's talent next to Aaron Jones in the backfield. And yes, they did re-sign Aaron Jones after he had like quietly one of the best 1,500 total yard seasons you'll ever hear of last year because they believe in Aaron Jones as well. But there's no doubt about it that this has been a guy who struggled to stay healthy. If you look at Aaron Jones' game logs last year, you'll see that Aaron Jones actually went out there and played all 17 games. But when you look a little bit deeper into it, he actually left 4 of these games early. So he either missed the second half or he missed a quarter or he missed 2 drives in the game because he was a little bit banged up. So this is still a player who is 30 years old now, and he is still dealing with some injuries. And just in general, approaching 30 years old, he's had soft tissue injuries in the past, like hamstrings that he's dealt with. This is a spot where maybe he misses some time this year, at least a game or 2. And as I highlighted earlier, he's going to be playing Jordan Mason for another great coach in Kevin O'Connell, who just knows how to run offenses, even with a borderline, basically a rookie, J.J. McCarthy. He's never played an NFL snap because of the injury last year. Heading into year 2, I still have a lot of confidence not only in McCarthy and the entire offense, but the backfield as well, and just everything shaping up here because of Kevin O'Connell. It's also easy to have confidence when you look at this right here. The offensive line should only be improved. They get Will Fries, one of the best guards, if not the best guard on the market. Ryan Kelly, a center in the free agency. I'm not really loving that, but it's fine. And then they also spent their first round pick in this year's NFL draft on Donovan Jackson, a guard out of Ohio State. They have Christian Darrisaw, their left tackle, coming back, one of the best tackles in the game, coming back from an injury healthy. So the offensive line quickly goes from being like shaky last year to probably being a top 10 unit on paper this year. So all of this bodes well for Jordan Mason, who shortly after the team got him, his head coach Kevin O'Connell, who we just spoke about, called Jordan Mason the 1B of this offense. He said in those goal line situations, goal to go, where we've really left a lot to be desired for a football team, is where they see him being used. Their own offensive coordinator would go on to talk about this as him being Minnesota's short yardage and goal line back, because last year Aaron Jones was getting a ton of red zone and goal line carries and he couldn't cash in. At times it felt like they were trying to force feed him the ball against his former team, the Packers, just to score a touchdown, and he couldn't get in. So when we continue to see quotes about how Jordan Mason's going to be like their red zone back, their goal line back, and how Aaron Jones is at his best when he's kept fresh, but we can keep him truly as a 1A because we've got the 1B with him, and that's Jordan Mason, basically saying like this is going to be a backfield that's close to a near 50-50, keeping Aaron Jones fresh so he could rip off his explosive plays and be efficient, and then having Jordan Mason in there for maybe some early down situations, switch drives here and there, and put him in the short yardage and goal line. That's a nice role to have. And then imagine if something happens to Aaron Jones, now Jordan Mason is probably a league winner. Just like he was at the start of last year before he dealt with his own shoulder injury. So you're getting a guy who, if something happens to Jones, he's sliding into 16 to 20 touches a game. He'll have an elite red zone role. He has a top 10 offensive line and one of the better coached offenses in the league. And this is a guy that you can still get outside the top 100 picks. Jordan Mason last year was an undrafted player that I was begging people to pick up on their waiver wires before week 1, before McCaffrey was even ruled out, and it ended up helping people out a lot for that first 4 to 6 weeks of the season. This year, you're going to have to draft him, and again, you're going to have to draft him in like the 9th round of your drafts, maybe the 10th round of your drafts, but I really like him right here. I think he has way more upside than a Najee Harris in this range of the draft, similar upside to a Cam Scatterbu, although Jordan Mason's in a much better offense. So when we're talking about this range of players, the running back position in round 9 or 10, love Jordan Mason. And real quick, if you're enjoying this content, just take 2 seconds to hit the subscribe button and double check that you have it hit. When you subscribe, it goes a long way for the channel. It lets more people see this content, which only allows me to put out even more of it for you beautiful people. So 2 seconds of your time, hit that subscribe button. Now those are 4 running backs, but I have a quick hitter for you because there's another guy as I was scripting this video that I really thought was interesting, and that's Jalen Wright of the Miami Dolphins. Based on where he's going right now, I mean, this guy is just pure speed. You think about Jalen Wright and you just see an elite athlete coming out. He was a rookie last year, ran a 4.38 40 time. Makes a lot of sense why the Dolphins drafted him. They're just filled up with speed with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, and they used to have John who was speedy. Of course, Devon Achane as well. And Jalen Wright was productive in college at Tennessee, albeit it was a Tennessee offense that basically spread people out, and the running backs had some easy running lanes. He put up over 1,000 yards. He averaged 7.4 yards per carry. He led college football 2 years ago an explosive run rate of 10 plus yards. Dude was averaging 7.4 yards per carry. Just absolutely insane. I have to say that again. He also went out there then last year, only a limited sample, 68 carries. Raheem Mostert was there while he was healthy. Devon Achane was there while he was healthy as well. So it wasn't like Wright had a ton of opportunities to be the guy. But we still did see some weeks where he was able to get some more touches with a Mostert out or an Achane banged up who left some games early and missed some time. And in those games, Jalen Wright went out there and he looked pretty good. He was averaging 5 or 6 yards per touch. And now if we look at the team changes tracker for the Miami Dolphins in the Fantasy Blueprint, again, you can check out all those tools at jointheblueprint.com. Limited spots left. Raheem Mostert is now gone. He's no longer with the team. I believe he's going to be turning like 33 this year. He's a part of the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a situation where like the clear RB2 on this team behind Devon Achane is going to be Jalen Wright. Sure, they signed a veteran, Alexander Mattison. I'm not concerned about that. Sure, they drafted a late round running back in Ollie Gordon, who is interesting. I think if he has a good preseason in camp, maybe he can start to get in the thoughts and the headlines as being the RB2 here. But it seems pretty obvious to me that it's Jalen Wright, a guy that they spent and traded up for in the draft and a middle round pick on last year. I think he's going to be the first crack at it. And we know that Devon Achane, each of the last 2 years, has left some games early and has missed some games with injury. He's an undersized back. So looking at Jalen Wright, who I thought he would be going in like the 120s, like a 10th or an 11th round pick as a handcuff RB who has some upside if Achane missed time, a fragile running back somewhat in front of him, but he's going as the 156th overall pick right now in drafts. He's like a 14th round pick in fantasy drafts, and when he's going next to guys like Hunter Henry, a tight end who led his team in targets and couldn't do anything last year and now has more competition. He's going next to Rico Dottle, who's going to be competing with Trevor Etienne as the backup in that backfield behind on an obvious starter in Chuba Hubbard. I don't know who else is down here. Some rookies in Jack Bech who don't have a proven role. Wan'Dale Robinson, who doesn't have that much upside. He had a ton of catches last year and couldn't do anything with it in fantasy. I just want to take, and that's the whole point of this video, I hope you can understand it now, is like in these rounds 12 through 15 to 16, depending on how deep your draft goes, just target the upside running backs who actually have a path to being like an RB1 if the starter in front of them goes down. You just have to hit on one of these guys. If you take 3 or 4 of them, just one of them has to pay off for you to have a league winner. And if 2 of them do, well, you're probably winning your league. So there you have it. There are 4 running backs you should be drafting more of, and a little bit of a quick hitter for you as well that your league mates just don't even care about right now and are taking the wrong picks in the later round. Take these guys instead. And if you want to keep dominating your drafts, not only in the later rounds, but all throughout it, well, you can check out this video I put out. It's about the breakout players, 5 breakout players across all different positions that I'm targeting this year in drafts I think will help you win your league. If you hit on breakouts and late round picks, you probably have a better chance to win your league. That's what the video we're currently talking about does. And that's what this video right here will do as well. So be sure to check that one out next. See you in the next one.